Xavier Legette gets drafted 32nd overall in the first round by the Carolina Panthers.
When you receive the jersey, you are saying, I'm good to go. I'm not making excuses and say, oh, this kid can't play. He can play.
It's ruled incomplete.
He's not the isolated playmaker that everybody assumes he is coming out of college. Please stop commenting. He's freakish. He's huge. He's gonna be. He ain't. Let me use bad English again. Let me say it one more time. He ain't.
Another episode of 89's Rookie Report Card. Xavier Legette gets drafted 32nd overall in the first round by the Carolina Panthers. But for the year, 13 games, 84 targets, 49 catches, 497 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Battled a couple little injuries and whatnot, Steve.
Yep.
But Xavier Legette was a big-bodied receiver. They were hoping he'd make immediate impact. There's some adjustments we're going to get through, but initial thoughts before we get into the report card of Xavier Legette.
It's a tough one for me because obviously being back home here in Charlotte, living here, everything you say, especially with me and the Carolina Panthers, will be criticized, it'll be looked at. But understand, I watch a lot of extensive film. When I just look at his film and I look at what's going on, I have to go back almost a year ago around this time when I was doing this breakdown, and there are some things that I saw that I really loved. It was intriguing. And then there were some question marks that I had that we'll get into and break down on how those question marks are still rearing their head now in the National Football League because of some of the things. And one of the biggest items and takeaways that I had in a question mark I had with Xavier was not, can he play? He's not this, he's not that. It's really, which guy are we gonna get? And okay. I remember writing down, I gotta get my notes. I gotta get my note that I had on him, and I wanna show you. It's not huge. It's just okay. real small, right? And one of the things I said that I was watching, I said, watching him snag pass after pass is pretty impressive. Over the shoulder, out jumping defenders. It's tough to believe which Xavier is going to be here to stay. 2023, 71 receptions, 1,255 yards, average reception is 17, almost 18 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And then I said, it's gonna be tough to believe which Xavier is here to stay. 2023 or developing Xavier 2022, where he had 18 receptions, 161 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I welcome your comments, and I've heard this, and I've been listening and taking track. And I have a list of things that his fan base and people that loved him at South Carolina, yeah, they were said. So one of the things they said is it was COVID. Noted. We all went through COVID. Okay. He had some, unfortunately, some deaths in his family, and yeah. I don't want to, I don't want to acknowledge that. He has some injuries. He sustained some injuries. Noted. He also, they didn't have good quarterback play. Noted. All of these things are legitimate, and I understand. But all those things cannot be the reason of why, when I look at film, I can't say, well, he was injured. When you receive the jersey, you are saying, I'm good to go. And I'm not making excuses, and I'm not trying to excuse and say, oh, this kid can't play. He can play. But what I am saying is we need to pump the brakes a little bit and remember, too, that when we're watching these young men, please stop commenting, he's freakish. He's huge. Oh, he's gonna be. He ain't. Let me use bad English again. Let me say it one more time. He ain't. Because some people are like, oh man, have you ever seen anybody? You have not, because you haven't. But there's 32 teams with a whole bunch of them. Yep. Right? There's a whole bunch of them that don't ever play. For various reasons, because of injuries, because of this, because of that. And so I'm saying all this is the thing that when I watch Legette and when I look at him and I say his physical tools, they were great in college. Now he has to harness them and understand that you can't out-jump everybody. The short guys can jump, the tall guys can jump, and I'm just evaluating and looking at the data. I don't get the commentary when I'm watching film, and I don't get the emotional attachment and detachment. I'm just looking at the data and running the remote. And the remote that I'm running doesn't have feelings, but this ink pen is writing truth. And that's what I'm going on. I think Legette is a prime example of a guy. The Carolina Panthers moved up as the 32nd pick to get him in the first round. And here's one of the things that people don't really understand why you get him in. You move up in the first round and not in the second. You get that fifth-year option. And the fifth-year option also says, hey, if he needs a little bit more time to develop, it gives us time to assess him and know, do we pay him according to what the current market is, or do we go, oh, he's worth this, we're not sure, and if he thinks he could get more on the open market, we'll get a compensatory pick later down the line to fill that void, but we just don't want to overpay for something that may not produce in the way that the salary cap hit may be impacted.
Okay, Steve, so let's throw out our first grade here, because I'd like to give him a grade on the details that come within playing the game. I know you're studying the film side of things, and the way we do these is then I talk to coaches that went against these players, executives that scouted these players, and find out what they believe they were going up against. And when you were running through all of this, the details kept coming up into my mind. And it's this. I talked to a DB coach that went against him. He said, you go watch him. He ends up getting a dime thrown to him from Bryce Young against Kansas City. Drops it. Ends up beating Slay really well early in a route. Ends up not making the play against Philadelphia and can't finish. I was told that you could get him out of games early by taking him out of games because he's not a detailed route runner yet.
Well, he's a rookie, so he should
exactly.
Be a
That's my point. So
route.
it's like there's these traits you're mentioning where I'm saying there's these coaches are saying he can win, right? There's times where you see him win, and your times where you see him have the ability to make the play, the details to finish the play. The other part is he's tough. He can catch over the middle in traffic. He's not scared to go over the middle, is what two different DB coaches told me. Maybe they said it was weird. His hands just appeared stronger in college than they were this rookie year, and I don't know what that equates to, Steve, sometimes in your first year.
Well, I know he has, so I know some of the fans are going to say he has a wrist injury.
Yeah.
Yes. And I believe he has to get surgery. I understand. But he also is out there. So he's saying that the risk is not deterring him from doing his job.
Yep.
But one of the things that I did notice that I would say is not about the wrist, it's about the head in his brain, has to do with, I think he's lost a little bit of his confidence in catching the football because of the drops. And you can see it by sometimes how he's attacking the football. He's attacking the football with his whole body, almost grasping at the football. And I know that because I too had struggled with confidence. Depending on the defender you're going, depending on what happened during the week, what's going on with the weather, there's a ton of things that impact your confidence that has nothing to do with a man's heart. It has to do with just sometimes being a human being. And, the ebbs and flows of a job. Some days you put on your hard hat, sometimes you put on your backpack, and you realize no matter how hard I train, hey, this marathon, it got me.
Yeah.
I prepared and I'm ready for it, but something happened, a little bit more wind than I anticipated. My shoelace came loose. If this is a marathon for him, I think he's in the first mile. Anybody that runs, in that first mile, once you get past that first mile, you're good. But in that first mile, it is a struggle. You feel the left hamstring that's tight. You start to feel, man, these shoes, did I wear the wrong socks? You start to feel things that you're like, why am I so unfocused and unconcentrated on a run that I just did 2 days ago and blew it out of the water? And that's where he's at. He's in that first mile where it's uncomfortable. Nothing seems to be going right consistently, but he's not going to stop. And that's the thing that I love. And there's some things in this film that are great. And then there's some things you go, we need to get back to work. And I think that's what the offseason is going to be for.
And that's what I'm talking about in the details, Steve, because when I'm reading from these coaches that I've spoken to, it's not like they're really knocking him, right? And I've never run a marathon. I don't ever intend on running a marathon. I've run a turkey trot 5K, maybe on Thanksgiving morning.
How's that first mile?
And the first mile stinks. And then you get into a groove. You get your cadence. You get into a rhythm about how you want to finish out and how you find your way into that. It seems like when I talk to these coaches, they're like, watching him right now, it just seems like a big athlete that doesn't know the intricacies of playing wideout right now or yet. Those were used repeatedly, which to me, that's usually when an opposing coach sees that like he can get there. So the last thing, I'm going to give this grade right now on his detail. I think, Steve, it's kind of like a C on the detail because there's stuff there, but then when he fine-tunes some of these things, I think in a lot of people's eyes, he goes to the next level. The last part I wanted to mention was another DB coach told me, like, right now he's just a big athlete running routes on the move. He's just a guy that needs more time on task and learn some things from a guy like Adam Thielen. And that transitions us to how he's being used, because I think Thielen plays a part in this, and I think the entire offense plays a part in this in how he's being used within the offense. That was another adjustment he was having to go through that was different than his time in college.
I think that why he's having that transition issue, in college he played X, and now he's playing Z, which is putting him in motion, off the ball. That's a transition. That's a little bit different of responsibility because they knew what kind of athlete he was, and they wanted to get him out in space and be able to use him in different situations because Adam Thielen is the F. He plays more of the go-to, and then the Z is more of the guy they put in motion, and then they had Deontay Johnson prior to him leaving. He was the X, which was able to get that free access and create his own shot. And so that's, I think, a little bit of why there's been this, like, he's missing the details because he's learning a new route from a different position that requires different responsibilities and different rules.
Steve, what I was told with exactly what you're talking about was this is Dave Canales' offense coming from Tampa. What one secondary coach told me who's gone against Legette was, I didn't know how they wanted to play him. Did they want him to be Chris Godwin? Did they want him to be Mike Evans? I couldn't tell by the way the offense was going what was the best fit for him or what they wanted him to do, because this was the interesting part because they have him playing X at times, but can he really win one-on-one versus press man yet? Is that setting him up to succeed right out of the gate? And then the other thing was, with what he's trying to develop, usually you want to try to find a way to get your young receivers to contribute the best they can. And this guy said, maybe that's in the slot. And you can navigate those spots, but that's where Adam plays best. So then you can't put him there. Where do you go? Situation is really huge for early success, this guy said. What's your take on when these guys are watching him and where he's lining up? And maybe if you could alter that. That might not be his career.
I don't like that question. I don't like that question because that question for some of these fans, they're not going to like.
I guess what I'm seeing, Steve, is these guys are seeing that he can be successful. They'd love to see him set up for success in his first year. That can change after year one.
This is where it has got fuzzy, and no one predicted this. You have Deontay Johnson, that he's there. He can run routes. Then you have Adam Thielen. Then you have Jonathan Mingo, since they shipped off. You have Xavier. And then who throws a monkey wrench? Two people who throw a monkey wrench in everything is David Moore starts to show what he was doing out in Seattle with Dave Canales, goes to Tampa, has a little bit of success, comes to Carolina and just is balling. And Jalen Coker, who's running excellent routes. And so what you have is you have some thoroughbreds in the stable who all are going, and then you start to realize that Deontay Johnson may be the mule out of the group and throwing a monkey wrench on his behavior and how he's doing. And then you have Jalen Coker, who all of a sudden Where'd this kid come from?
Out of nowhere. Holy Cross.
Holy Cross. What are we doing, Batman? You got rich people problems, man. You got too many guys. Now the question is going to be, as they go next year, who falls in a sophomore slump, who starts to advance. But ultimately, what I'm hearing you say is usage, and you go back to hearing some other things about people. When you start, that's why I don't like comparing rookies to veterans, because you assume, you were hearing something, he has that Deebo Samuels kind of body type. He has that DK Metcalf body type. I thought he had more advanced route tree than DK in college because of the way DK was using. But one of the things that I'm noticing is they gave a guy an opportunity to run a whole bunch of routes. And against college kids, Legette is perfect. Balled. Rookie minicamp, shut it down. But against veterans, nobody's falling for that. You're not big boying me. The everything that you present physically is what they go against, Megatron, AJ Brown. Like, he's not the isolated playmaker that everybody sees and assumes he is coming out of college. He's no longer the 6'1", 225 pounds, 4'3", Everybody's going, wow. It ain't no wow.
He's 6'3".
Well, whatever. Bro, everybody's taller than me, so semantics, it doesn't matter.
No, but what I do want to ask you, Steve, is I think people do forget you're trying as a head coach and a first-year head coach, albeit for Dave Canales, is how do I win football games and how do I develop my young talent? And that goes into how he's being used and how this group is being used, right? Because Dave is trying to win football games. He's trying to develop a quarterback that had one of the most uncomfortable, unconventional, just catastrophic rookie seasons you can have. So you're trying to get your first overall pick in year 2 up to speed. You're trying to win football games in your first year. And also Xavier Legette's a guy that you're looking at going, how do I find ways for him to be successful? But you mentioned all the reasons why it's probably difficult to find those things with the group you're looking at. And that's why I wanted to mention kind of the usage, because there was another part that I was kind of told asking around was, when you're a volume catcher, and we've talked about this on the show, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, these guys are volume catchers. He was more that, it seems at times in college. When you're a volume catcher, you don't get those looks, or you don't get that volume, Steve. Does it affect, as a young receiver, your route running? Does it affect your rhythm? Rhythm was something that kept coming up when I asked about him. How much is that impacted? I want your take on that, because at the same time, if your rhythm's thrown off and your route running's thrown off because you're not getting the balls that you usually got and you're used to, and you're going against more talented DBs, and a system in the NFL should be more timing with your quarterback against the pass rush, against everything. How much does that impact? And that's part of this usage conversation we're having, because obviously he has to be used differently, like we discussed.
Well, we're giving them a grade on usage. What I hear is transition.
Okay. Hey, strike it. Throw in transition.
He hasn't transitioned and understood the transition that you are a young man who has to earn his plays. Not your plays will be given to you because of your draft status. And so volume right now is an issue. But over time, when he gets used to it, and he has that muscle memory, and they have that, and the offense is understanding that you're not going to get the volume. This guy has to get his catches. This guy has to get his catches. Then all of a sudden, things are going to be different. Just imagine if the Carolina Panthers, when they get Brooks back, he's a guy who can run the football and catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to get his touches. So understanding that you have to play within the scheme of your offense, and you have to get going. You gotta be that pet bull off the porch, or that Doberman pitcher. You can't stretch. You got to be ready. If you know better, do better. All right. You can't be stretching. That lion does not stretch before he gets that gazelle. He just gets up roaring and he goes up in the jungle and takes what he wants. And that's what he has to understand and do.
I think on transition, Steve, then that's right in that kind of C category too, as kind of the two sides that we're looking at it. And again, these are all things that are I think, showing
Fixable.
some. Yes, that was the other thing that I got. Like everything that he has issues with is fixable. That is in my notes right here. So I think this is the jumping off point. And oftentimes, I mean, this is an organization that's trying to turn a corner here, and a lot of different pieces, as we mentioned. So, yeah, I think
he's one of their
that's a fair
assets.
grade. Yes, definitely. I think that's
one of
those,
assets.
those
And
spots.
All the liabilities they got rid of.
True.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this tape.
Let's do it. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Now, with the new year beginning, we're here to remind you that life is more and maybe more complex than just resolutions that fade in February. It's about picking up the pen, becoming the author of your own life. BetterHelp is completely online, so it's therapy that is both convenient and affordable, and serving more than 5 million people worldwide. So, write your story with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/89 and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/89.
But right here we have him down. He's up top in a bunch formation. He has a deep out, catches the ball. Would have liked him to turn up the field like this. See, like that catch right there. Like that's a circus catch. You can see he's already stumbling coming out of his break. Ball is thrown. That catch is because he's trying to make sure he catches the ball. There's nothing wrong with that. But come on, man. You're what? 12 yards from the end zone? Let's get, turn up the field. But you see, he double catches it. He almost drops it. That's why he has to dive to get the catch. And that's one of those where you just want him to get the football. And then right now, he's in the 3 spot, up at the corner. I love his release. He starts inside, uses his leverage. However, I would like him to catch the football, but that goes with confidence. He's jumping to catch the football because he wants to make sure, let me get this catch. Here's why I'm being critical. In college, he would have caught that football and ran. It would have been half of the damn team would have had to tackle him because he's just that physically gifted. But in the league, when you don't have that confidence, like look, he catches he doesn't.
Yeah.
He does not have to do that, but I understand where he's at. But again, people, I'm just looking at it based off what I seen, his film and what he did in college, and I expect a little bit of that sparkle to be on the football field as well. Jazz hands. All right. Now, I hate to show this one, but I got to. Outside, he runs a quick out, widens it out. Look at that, sitting right there. I've been there, bro. Mm-hmm. You got to catch it before you run. That's one of those you just want to get back. Designed for him, going to it.
You got a blocker out in front. You got Yak there, Steve.
Yep, you got Mingo. Mingo's been like, man, I've been there.
That's why he didn't say anything.
Yeah, he was like, who better him than me? So I really like this play. He's down at the bottom. I love the concept that Coach Canales and the team is running, but I also love he recognizes the coverage. Bang, goes in there, goes upstairs, working with the tight end, gets up there, settles his feet, sitting there in the zone. Love it. I would like Andy to keep the ball up a little bit. I think he didn't get it. I think that slipped through his hands too, but I like this route because he's not getting the football. Condensed split, he runs, puts his foot in the ground, looking. I like that. Now, why Andy doesn't throw it is that linebacker who's covering the back is delayed. If that linebacker comes down to cover the back, Chuba, I think that's Chuba, if he comes down, I believe based on the coverage, Andy Dalton would be throwing Xavier the football. He's ready, eyes are right, body's under control. That is what you've seen out of him in college that you would expect for him to do. Now this one, here we go. So he rushes it, does a good job, catches the ball. He kind of hesitated. He didn't know if it was man or zone, and so he kept running. So that's one of those you could trick the quarterback. You got to be careful because they say if you're looking,
you booking.
You're booking. He looks and stops. Kind of tells the quarterback, hey, throw it to me, and then keeps going. That's what I mean. That's what you talk about, details, because that, we've seen that before, and that quarterback throws it, and then he takes off, and then it throws it right into the hands of the DB, and it's a pick six. And then they go on the sideline, and that's where, things get animated, and people talk about things.
Put up towels so nobody can see people arguing nowadays.
Exactly. For me, his route running has to be a C because of the lack of finish, meaning catching the football in a consistent way. Had 8 drops, 497 yards. This is a guy who did a really good job of yak. You saw he was a big muscle guy, didn't really come down. And understand, 81 targets. So it's not like he didn't get opportunities. 81 targets, 49 receptions, only 4 touchdowns. And the reason I say route running is if you have better route running, you have the ability to have that separation, and that gives you ability to turn up the field and get dirty, which he only has 112 yards of yak. When you see this physical kid, you see what he's capable of doing, what he did in college, you would anticipate and assume that he would have at least 200 to 300 yards of yards after catch, and he doesn't have that. So that's pretty surprising. For me with catching, just gotta go with all C's, man. Here's why. 23 contested catches, only came down with 12 of them. And some of those 12 were drops. Only 27 first downs, average depth of target 12.6. That's something I really would love to see. Targets for deep, 12 targets. For explosive plays, 20 plus, only 5 receptions for 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, mid 10 to 19, 21 targets, 13 catches, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then really where he was used the most, 42%, 0 to 9 in short. So 42% of his damage, 34 targets, 27 receptions. So that means they're getting him the football in space, but nobody's covering him. So they're kind of creating those natural picks and rubs to get him going, and 194 yards. And potential, I would say I got to give him a B because based off of injuries, based off what he did in college, and you can see that he's a young man that's learning, getting his feet wet in the National Football League, and I think he has a tremendous upside. But overall, man, I really like this kid. I think he could play. Obviously, this offseason, he has some things to work on. But final grade, I got to give him a C as well.
I think that's fine. I think that's not a knock either. I think that's
it's not. This is not a bash session.
Mm-hmm.
This is not to bash him. This is just saying potential and what he can do. And the reason I have a C and why I'll say it'll be a C is because with all this information, data, and analytics, you're in control of your own destiny, right? Control the controllables. You can't control if the quarterback throws you a bad ball, but you can control if you get in and out of your route, if you catch it cleanly with your hands or you try to body catch.
Well, listen, C's won't put you in summer school. Mom and dad, some mom and dad's happy with C.
It won't get you evicted either.